New World Order. The New World Order has nothing at all to do with a political government. The New World Order is the establishment of a global corporation.
I use the word Illuminati, other people use different words. I don't know who they are, I mean they haven't sent me a fax or anything like that. I mean, when it comes to evidence the Illuminati exists, like I said, they don't have, you can't phone them up, there's no website, there's no place where they are, where you can actually go knock on their door. But then the same could be said for the mafia. But no one doubts that the mafia exists.
With the corporation effectively controlling everything, and the country is effectively being dismantled and simply being turned into departments, P&Ls, profit and loss centres, for the global corporation. And within this global corporation, they certainly don't need 7 billion, or they don't perceive they need 7 billion people, give or take.
The evidence of the Illuminati comes partly from multiple eyewitness testimony, and partly from the fact that you can actually see their footprints in the world. I mean, if you look at the documents that have been released, for instance, Silent Weapons for a Quiet War, one guy told me, he said, you know, you think they don't exist? Well, hold up Silent Weapons for a Quiet War in one hand, hold up today's newspaper in the other. They match exactly.
It would be futile to try and pinpoint it down to specific individuals. In fact, any of the individuals that we see in the media, that we see presented as the political elite, these are not part of the inner sanctum.
Politics is the discussion of things which bring about real change in the world, and I mean real change. Our politicians don't discuss things that bring about any change, and I'm going to illustrate this. Let's just say that the political landscape, politics, is being played out in this football stadium, and the players on the pitch are the political players in politics. What are the issues which really bring about change, or have brought about change in our world?
I mean, the inner sanctum was probably best defined by Dr. John Coleman in 1986 in his book Committee of 300. And even in his research, he established that even within the Committee of 300, there's an inner sanctum who he referred to as the Olympians, which is a group of 13 within that group.
The central banking system and the way that that is organised, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit, okay? Politicians have got no say over how the Bank of England is controlled, and central banks in general, and how money is created. They're out of the loop on that. The media, most politicians are actually duped by the media. They believe what the media says, and they can't see through the lies.
I use the phrase, and I appreciate it doesn't sort of roll off the tongue too easily, but I use the phrase, it is those who believe themselves to be the rightful rulers of a planetary fiefdom. Funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, called Global Governance 2025, and it looks at all the various potential scenarios for bringing about, for ensuring that they bring about global governance, the New World Order, the global corporation, by the year 2025. And this is where we find the information regarding the target of merging the North American Union with the European Union by 2022.
False flag operations, again, 9/11 and 7/7. They wouldn't even acknowledge that this is the truth. But these false flag operations have brought about massive change in the world, because they have caused leaders to be deposed and millions of people to be killed and administrations to be changed in foreign countries. So that is exercising huge power, and our politicians aren't even aware of it.
These guys are effectively transnationals or globalists. I mean, they have a passport by accident of birth, but they're not interested in the nation state. They have no loyalty whatsoever, either to a nation state or certainly to the people of that nation.
So it brings about military operations, which they are not part of. And again, they do not know about no politician knows about the hidden technology of 9/11, the advanced energy weapon. So how can they claim to have any power?
Just to interject, if you notice, one of the people that we're not mentioning is politicians. Not presidents, not prime ministers, not chancellors. None of these people have got power.
It is pretend power. Most people think that they have power, but they don't. And I think most people in their souls, they know that no matter which party they vote for, there's no change. So they actually kind of know they don't have power, but they're not aware of these issues that I mentioned in the football stadium there.
So the socio-psychopaths are identified at a very early age in academia, and they're selected for the fraternities that we know are very dominant, like Skull and Bones, like Phi Beta Kappa, and even through the Freemasonry structure in the US, they become Shriners. And so we have this sort of hidden hierarchy, which is carrying out the work, if you like, of those, that inner sanctum.
Now, because it's fake power, they have to have more prostitutes in suits to sell that fake power to the public, like this man here. He has to sex up, oh, this politician said this, politician said that, and make people think that this is real power, when it isn't. If only he'd been in my class at school.
The Bilderberger meetings are used to ensure that the main players in the political and industrial military arenas are briefed on what the agenda is going to be.
That group is there so that those people across world governments know what the agenda is from those who are in the hidden group. So the Bilderberg group isn't a hidden group as such, but it's being passed, that's a mechanism by which they're passing down that information to NATO governments effectively.
Well, I mean, the Bilderberg group is one of them. But even like Ian was saying, you could argue, say, Prince Bernhard or Queen Beatrix, who are the sort of founding members of the Bilderberg group, people who started the Trilateral Commission, people like Walter Lippmann and stuff like that, the CFR, and then obviously the Trilateral Commission and stuff like that. You could even argue people at the top of the United Nations. I mean, people like Kurt Waldheim were actually ex-SS, and he was the Director General of the United Nations. But as you said, if you've heard these people's names, they're just placements of Zbigniew Brzezinski, Carol Quigley, all of these people, Karl Rove, all of these people who are distinctly evil people that have got sort of a lot of power. They're basically there to steer people in a direction.
Right. Biggest obstacle to establishing the New World Order, global governance, is the rapid political awakening of the masses.
I think they're running the scripts. I mean, I just think that they're reasonably proficient actors. That's my personal opinion. But how do you think...
Socio-psychopathic actors.
Is this person sound? We'll put him up, we'll see if he does what basically we will tell him to do. If he does, he'll get a reward. If he does something terrible, he'll get a really big reward.
But there seems to be a globalization or a centralization of power to both, well, the American Union. You believe that Canada and Mexico and the US are going to form a union?
Oh, they're behind schedule on that. I mean, in answer to your other question, what is the EU? It is a department. It is a department. It is effectively a P&L, a profit and loss centre of this global corporation. People in the US still are locked on to this myth that the US is a sovereign nation, which of course it isn't. So that's why, actually the imminence of the collapse of the US dollar might be triggered sooner rather than later to initiate the process of creating the North American Union. And then the next stage of the game is to merge the North American Union with the European Union into the North Atlantic Union.
Grieves me to say so, but 33% of the British people nowadays are corrupt, 33% are brainwashed, and 33% are spineless. Only 1% have a conscience and courage enough to speak out.
The revised target is 2022. And the reason they want to establish the North American Union and with the European Union into the North Atlantic Union is to create an industrial military bloc that is capable of facing off China/Russia.
We are a nation of quislings. If you don't know the name quisling, look up in a dictionary.
The Iranian government said on Friday that it had designed and tested the country's third generation of domestically built centrifuges as the nation celebrated its nuclear energy achievements. Iran, a signatory of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, says its nuclear program is aimed at the peaceful use of nuclear energy. The West, however, alleges the work is for developing the capacity to build atomic bombs. Under the same Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Britain's own nuclear bomb program is illegal. The Trident program consists of 200 nuclear warheads on 4 nuclear submarines operating from the Clive Naval Base in Scotland.
It's called The Report from Iron Mountain on the Possibility and Desirability of Peace. And it's a great document to download, and again, incredibly prescient, but the punchline is they come to the conclusion that actually there's no alternative but to keep people in fear and keep the war culture going.
I'm going to make a statement here. This book is the only comprehensive scientific investigation into the evidence of 9/11, written by a qualified professor of engineering mechanics. Could not be better qualified to carry out such an investigation of the evidence. And this book proves beyond any doubt whatsoever that what destroyed the towers or made them turn to dust was a directed energy weapon. That is now an established fact. It is not a theory. It is a fact, and it is proven in this book. That is what happened on 9/11. Now, once you realize that and read this book, you then realize that that type of technology would not be in the hands of men with beards sitting in caves in Afghanistan. Okay? Osama bin Laden died in 2001 in December. We've been fed a huge lie about 9/11. 9/11 was a false flag operation carried out by the US administration at some level to give them justification to invade the countries that they wanted to take control of. And unfortunately, the same is true of the terrorist attack which happened in London in 2005. That was orchestrated by British intelligence agencies. And this book, Terror on the Tube, Behind the Veil of 7/7, proves that the 4 young Muslim men it was blamed on were set up as patsies to take part in a mock terrorist training drill. There is no evidence that would convict them, which is why they are still totally innocent under our law. Our mainstream media have completely lied about the London bombings. Okay? These are 2 established facts. There is no debate about this now. There's enough evidence to prove this in court, that both these events were false flag attacks carried out by Western governments, not by Al-Qaeda or Islamic terrorists.
The moment that George Bush was awarded the presidency, Saddam immediately stated that he was going to start selling Iraqi oil in euros, which he did right through until May. And then people will remember that iconic moment on the USS Lincoln, where Bush flew in on the plane, and in the backdrop behind him was mission accomplished. And people believed that mission accomplished statement to relate to the military victory of the troops getting to Baghdad. In reality, what it related to was the statement that from that moment forward, Iraqi oil was once again being traded in the petrodollars.
Sure.
And Gaddafi, sorry to interject, Gaddafi was talking about nationalising the oil fields of Libya as well, and what he'd done was he'd actually done quite a shrewd manoeuvre where he'd got a lot of money back from the conglomerates, and what he'd actually done to with all this huge amount of money was he distributed it evenly between the peoples of Libya.
A man is setting up the African dinar, pan-African currency based on gold, which has not involved debt-free currency, and that would have brought real prosperity to Africa. Prosperity and self-respect, and Libya was the most affluent nation in Africa. The main African industries were located in Libya, and if he'd been allowed to go on, I think real prosperity would have come to Africa, but also self-respect and independence. So the big multinationals wouldn't have been able to continue plundering it. Right. And I think that's why Gaddafi had to be smashed.
One of the primary causes, like Saddam moving Iraqi oil from the petrodollar to the euro, Gaddafi's game plan was to start trading Libyan oil in gold. He was looking to establish an Arab-African economy based on the gold dinar, thereby potentially pulling the rug out from under the Rockefeller-controlled fiat petrodollar.
Mossadegh in Iran, this was...
1953.
Yeah. That's taken, what, 50-odd years for them to come out and admit that, yeah, we were involved.
And that overthrow was financed by BP.
Exactly.
It has grown in popularity throughout 2011. Its coverage of the Islamic revolutions across many countries has been very well received by viewers. In my opinion, their coverage of this and other world events has put the BBC's very selective news coverage to shame. I am not asking you to believe this statement, but what I am asking you to do is to watch Press TV News for an hour, then watch the BBC News for an hour and make your own judgment. Viewers have commented that the axing of Press TV by Ofcom would be an infringement of free speech. If one puts the challenge to Press TV into a broader geopolitical context and the warmongering statements being made by the West against Iran, it seems very worrying indeed. If the West do intend to start a war with Iran, removing their news channel would be a prerequisite. One wonders if plans are already in place for such an evil war. If a war is started with Iran, the shit really will start to hit the fan. Iran is not Iraq and has some superpower allies, namely Russia and China. The Gulf of Mexico oil thing was started deliberately, that's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Right.
But that, I mean, I didn't sort of wake up on the morning of April 21st, see it and say it was a contrived event. Not only was this a contrived event, but I actually was starting to focus in on the individual who was on the rig who managed to ensure that this accident happened.